In the world of tech, we are absolutely obsessed with speed, with growth, and yeah, with compensation. But what if we're measuring the wrong race altogether? Today, we're going to go beyond the paycheck and reframe what a career is. Not a sprint for money, but an endurance event, one for building real, lasting capability. Let's dive in. So let me just ask you this right up front. Are you training for a sprint or are you training for an ultra ride? Because trust me, how you answer that question changes absolutely everything about how you approach your work, your growth, and your future. Think about it. A sprinter, they optimize for one thing, right? Explosive, visible speed. But an ultra rider, someone who's built for the long haul, they're all about cadence, judgment, and pacing. They know how to handle the tough parts, the headwinds. You see, the sprint is about output. The ultra ride, that's about resilience and judgment. And this all leads us to a pretty tough question that's being asked in the tech industry right now, one sparked by a pretty provocative headline. Are we creating a generation of professionals who are earning more than ever, but maybe aren't being stretched deeply enough to become the leaders we need? Okay, so this is an uncomfortable line to read, but you know what? A lot of leaders are quietly admitting that it kind of names a concern they're already feeling. It's not that people aren't smart or that they don't work hard. They absolutely do. The issue is way more subtle, and it really starts with the system itself. And this is the crucial point. This is not about blaming individuals. Not at all. The source material is really clear on this. When a mission starts to feel like it's thinning out, it usually has a lot less to do with attitude and a whole lot more to do with the environment people are working in. So, what does a system like that teach people? Well, it teaches them what to optimize for. When the biggest rewards are handed out for cranking out fast output, for just looking busy, and for safe execution, people naturally focus there. And those muscles you need for real leadership, like taking ownership in ambiguous situations or thinking long term, they start to atrophy. This leads to a really, really dangerous phenomenon, and it's one of the core ideas we're talking about today. It's something called the salary false flat. It's this comfort trap that you often don't even see until it's way too late. If you're a cyclist, you know this feeling. The road looks totally flat. It feels like you're just cruising along, but the gradient is secretly slowly rising. In a career, a great salary can feel exactly the same way. It gives you security, sure, but it can also mask a lack of deep, meaningful growth, leaving you completely unprepared when the terrain inevitably gets tough. Wow, this just brilliantly illustrates the human side of that false flat. This is a real, anonymized quote from a senior leader. I mean, on paper, they were a rock star, but their honesty reveals this deeper truth. Promotions and pay raises don't automatically build strength. They had the speed, for sure, but they didn't have the endurance. So, why does all of this matter so much right now? Because the terrain is changing for everyone. The climb is coming, and it's coming in the form of AI, shifting client demands, and all kinds of new business pressures. The days of just cruising on smooth roads, well, they're coming to an end. And what's really interesting here is how we can frame AI in this metaphor. AI, it's giving us all a stronger, faster bike, no doubt. We can code faster, we can create faster, we can analyze faster. That's fantastic. But it doesn't automatically give us stronger legs. It doesn't build our judgment or our ability to diagnose a really messy problem or make those tough trade-offs. And that's really the bottom line, isn't it? The productivity gains we get from our tools are amazing, but they are absolutely not a substitute for deep human capability. Speed is not the same thing as judgment. Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem pretty thoroughly. Now let's talk about solutions. How can organizations actually start building the kind of endurance their people are going to need for that coming climb? Well, the thinking here is that it comes down to a pretty simple three-step shift. First, you have to measure what actually matters for leadership, not just what matters for delivery. Second, you have to reward the courage it takes to learn and grow, not just reward polished success. And third, you have to deliberately build stretch into roles, the kind of discomfort that bears growth, the kind that actually builds real strength. This table just lays it out perfectly. We need to shift our cultural focus away from rewarding things like velocity and output and start rewarding initiative, problem framing, and real capability growth. I mean, what gets measured becomes the culture, and this is the cultural shift that's so desperately needed. Ultimately, this all comes down to psychological safety. So many professionals, they aren't lazy, they're cautious. They've learned over time that trying something new or speaking up can sometimes backfire. If we want to build real builders and leaders, we have to create environments where it's safe to experiment, to fail intelligently, and to still be trusted. All right, let's bring this all home and talk about you, the individual professional. Because while the system definitely needs to change, at the end of the day, your career is still your ride. So what's your real engine?
First thing to remember is this: your title is temporary. It's just a snapshot in time. It describes the job you have right now, but it does not define your long-term value.
But this is what lasts. Your judgment, your clarity, your resilience, your ability to calmly solve hard problems. That is the asset that compounds over your entire career, no matter how the market or the tools change. Your salary is the fuel, for sure, but your judgment, that's the engine. So how do you build that engine? Well, you can start by asking for an uncomfortable assignment. Go learn the business context behind the work you're doing. Focus on first principles thinking, especially with AI in the picture. And ask for feedback on how you handle ambiguity, not just on how well you handle a list of tasks. And that brings us to the final critical question for the entire tech industry. It's a choice. Are we building careers or are we just building compensation packages? Because the future is going to belong to the companies and to the people who can think clearly, adapt quickly, and lead when there is no script. Now that is the ambition worth protecting.